challenge, own, dare, evolve.
What does that even mean?
Audemars Piguet, code 1159.
What is up, Watch fam, and welcome to today's episode. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and
I'm Anna from Theo and Harris.
And today we're going to be talking about Audemars Piguet's newest and huge release at SIHH, an entire new model line called the Code 1159.
Before we get into the wristwatch check, if you are watching this video, subscribe to the channel because we have just started something super exciting. Every single month we're going to be giving away a watch
that I pay for.
We just got our first few in and we're super excited. All you have to do to enter to win is subscribe to this channel. So do that if you want a free watch.
It's very simple. A free, beautiful watch. What
Beautiful
more
watch.
can you get?
Subscribe.
Quick wristwatch check. I am wearing a Cartier Tank American. Really cool watch.
Beautiful.
I'm a big Cartier fan. We'll be talking about them, I think, on Wednesday when we discuss more SIHH releases. And what are you wearing?
I'm wearing very fitting an AP Royal Oak with a dual time, date, and power reserve.
That's a complicated piece.
It's beautiful.
It's 37 millimeters, which to me is a wonderful size for a Royal Oak. And the case condition, which is key when it comes to Royal Oaks, is immaculate.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
perfect.
totally perfect. On the table, because we always have so many watches floating around, we have a Rolex reference 16700 Tiffany dial. If you can't answer the question why those 9 letters can be worth 20 or 30 or 100 grand, go ahead and watch last week's video. The link to that video is in the description.
And there,
Anna and I sat down and kind of cracked the code. The code, and figured out what it is about those 9 letters that causes such kind of mayhem and collectability.
Yeah, check it out.
Okay, so first, I think a disclosure is necessary here. This conversation is about to be amazing. I'm so excited for it. It's so detailed and it looks so far into the future of one of the world's most important watch brands. But there is a lot of information, everybody, so buckle your seatbelts. So, without further ado, Code 1159. Why is Audemars Piguet releasing a collection, right? Releases at SIHH and other fairs have been basically as simple as a dial change. That qualifies as a release. That's news today, right? Tudor made a watch, the same watch they always make with a new bezel.
Right.
News, front covers.
Oh yeah,
it's ridiculous. That's
big deal.
It's ridiculous. But Audemars Piguet has decided to introduce a totally new collection, 13 references, 6 different individual, different watches, from time only to Grand Sonnerie, right? An incredible range here. Let's go through the watches real quick. First, a 3-hander with date, then an in-house chronograph, then a perpetual calendar with aventurine dial, then a flying tourbillon, then a tourbillon openwork, and then finally a Grand Sonnerie with an incredible enamel dial. That's a lot of watches.
Yeah.
They're all cased in precious metal. And although they're all, very different because of their complication, their price point, what kind of purpose they serve, they do share a lot in common.
You're absolutely right. I mean, all of these watches across the 6 different models share the same design language, and it's fairly obvious. You have this sort of sandwiching of both octagonal and round cases, basically, which is an obvious homage to the Royal Oak.
Yep.
And on that you have, various finishing, which looks pretty cool. And then an extension of that, you have the lugs, which are skeleton. And then you have the dials, which obviously are communicating different things because they're different complications. All look like they come from the same, base, right? They have the same fonts and they have the same basic design. And so it's pretty clear they're all in line with each other.
They are. I think that to look at the positive, because there's a whole lot of negative we're going to get into a second here. The positive is that Audemars Piguet was able to release 6 different watches, 13 different references that are all clearly related. It is cohesive?
Yeah.
Right? It's a cohesive collection. And you also have this crystal, apparently, that a lot of bloggers are talking about. No one seems to really be able to explain without using 4,000 words. Apparently the crystal is what?
It's a double crystal. So it's literally, there's a crystal and then another crystal inside.
Okay.
And it's supposed to make it look different magnification, and it adds different perspective. It's hard to tell when it's not in your hand.
So now, those are the facts. Now let's get to the opinion. Why is AP releasing a new collection? It's because AP is criticized, well, not just criticized all the time, but because they have a problem with the fact that their entire brand is basically one watch.
Right.
Their brand is the Royal Oak. The watch was introduced in 1972, and since it has become one of the most important watches in the entire world, and certainly, by far, without competition, the most important watch in the Audemars Piguet catalog. And that has limited them. You know, it's limited their street cred. Okay, you have one fucking watch.
Right.
How are you going to scale that for the next 300 years? Right? Watches aren't a fad. This is going to be around for a while.
Right.
You have to build new infrastructure. So they said, boom, let's introduce a new collection. That I give them major props for.
Right.
I think that finally AP had the balls to say, we're going to invest millions upon millions and millions of dollars and half a decade of research and development that could have been spent elsewhere on developing this. Now let's take a look at the design. I like the case. I really do. I think it's different. I think that, particularly because of the skeleton lugs, the case seems like it was manufactured more by an independent watch brand rather than a mainstream, and I love the finishing on it.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, I think that AP, you know, Royal Oak aside, is sort of known for their finishing, specifically on like case and bracelet, right?
Oh yeah.
So this watch, I think, definitely demonstrates that in a
Absolutely.
really good way, and that definitely, if nothing else, just cements their position as being a sort of an authority on case finishing and on thoughtful finishing.
And I really do appreciate that. So that for me makes sense that it is AP. That case, although different and unlike almost anything they have, is still AP. It's the dial design language that I don't like. That's what I don't understand. I mean, if you look at the chronograph, it looks like an Emporio Armani watch. Boom. I don't get it. I think it's immature. I think that the date window on the time only is lazy, right? When you put it next to A. Lange & Söhne's new release for their Zeitwerk date, look how much thought that went into the disc system to kind of highlight the date on the outer ring in red. They didn't use a pointer and they didn't use a window. Lange isn't in the Holy Trinity. And if AP and Vacheron and Patek want the Holy Trinity to mean anything, they've got to be thinking like that, I think.
Yep.
I think a lazy date window is bad. And I hate even criticizing that, because can't we talk about more important things?
Are we over this?
Can't we talk about more important things than a fucking date window? I don't like that. Moving up the line, I think that the chronograph is too busy. I think it's boring.
Totally agree.
I don't like it.
Another thing I will say about that is that everything is the same.
Yeah.
Right, like everything is the same size, which to me just looks like, okay, it's a lot and it's all the same size. I don't know where to look, and like, now I'm done.
Speaking of size, at 41 millimeters, I think the entire collection is a little too big.
We should talk about that, especially in relation to the new Royal Oak.
Yeah.
But further on, moving further in this collection, I think the Perpetual with the Aventurine dial is gorgeous. I love that dial.
To me, I've seen a lot of wrist shots from SIHH, and I think that's probably one of the more beautiful watches that's come out of it. I'm a sucker for an Aventurine dial. Many of them look very feminine. This one doesn't. It does have a kind of a masculine kind of tone to it.
Sure.
I'm a big fan of that watch. And then you move up the line, you go to the hyper expensive shit, and whatever. I don't even need to talk about it.
And just to touch on size real quick, because you mentioned that, they released the Royal Oak chronograph with 4 new variations of the dial in 38 millimeters after so many people requested it, because this is the sizing so many people wanted.
Yeah.
And then they go and say that this new 1159 collection is for men and women, for everyone, and you make it 41 millimeters?
Yeah, I think the watch is too big. I think you're
Confused.
exactly right. It's like they're speaking out of two sides of their tongue. You know,
Totally.
it doesn't make much sense. I suspect that because the dials are so large, the dial to case ratio is so in favor of the dial,
Yeah.
I think they're even going to wear huge. But here's the really interesting part of the conversation. Since AP released this collection, the entire internet has shit on it. And I think rightfully so in many ways, because a lot of the dials are very lazy. Right? So I don't even blame the internet for shitting on AP. Then you have the CEO or whatever executive is spearheading this whole code 1159, comes out and says, well, that's social media. Yeah, we chose to launch on social media. You didn't choose to. You had to. You either launch on social media or you're an idiot. So you're not getting any pats on the back from me for launching on social media. Right. But his point in an interview I saw was, back in 1972, if we released the Royal Oak on Instagram, people would have shit all over it too. So I'm not too worried about it.
If social media would have been there in 1972, I would have loved to see what would have happened.
And I mean, there's flaws in that logic, I think. But the first problem there is not everything that is initially received poorly ultimately becomes a big success. That's not how things work. Most things that are received poorly ultimately end up doing poorly. So that's number one. And I think that number two, the big problem here, and I do feel bad for AP on this. The Royal Oak is an incredible watch. It's one of the best watches ever made. It might even be the best watch ever made. I don't know, right? It's a remarkable piece. It changed the history of the word luxury, period. And it sucks to walk in those footsteps. I get it. You know, it sucks to be an executive at the company. Everyone's looking to you like, oh, are you going to save us? Are you going to breathe new life? I applaud anyone that does put their, head on the line and say, I'm going to go for it. And I do hope that ultimately there is success through, modification. But there is modification that needs to be made. Like I said, the design language, particularly on the dials, is very boring. People kick back very heavily.
Well, everyone in the unpaid watch world is kind of kicking the teeth into an AB.
Yeah, everyone on social media, everyone on blogs, forums, Facebook. I mean, this watch has been received very, very poorly.
It's getting very fair, or even more than fair coverage on major blogs.
Oh yeah, major blogs have treated it very, very well. Azalud, Don Corleone. Here's the ultimate question, right? And watches evolve, collections evolve. Code 1159 will not be the same thing in 5 years. It'll be somewhat different, right?
Let's hope.
But here's the question. Does the Code 1159 as a collection have any of the same passion or vision, and ultimately any of the same importance that the Royal Oak had? Sure, maybe they share initial, backlash. Fine. But that doesn't make it great. And I wonder if over the course of the next couple of years, if they will not only just make aesthetic improvements to the dial, but if there will be some sort of actual purpose for this collection. Now, if I'm to speculate, I will say that these watches will be released in steel in a couple of years. Maybe the time onlys will hit in the high teens, in which case, for the obvious quality of the watches, that would be a big value prop.
In conclusion, big release, lots of questions. We're excited to see developments and see what comes of it.
Yeah, it's a long road ahead. To AP, I wish you nothing but the best, truthfully, because the best for you is the best for the watch community. If AP does great, we all do great.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Yes, yeah, that's a good, that one. Just
restore yourselves to your former glory.
Yeah.
Look to the future.
You guys, comment below in our thread that we'll start. What would you change about this? Do you like something? What's your favorite model? And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you like this content.
Adios, guys.